Thank you guys for your response on my last video. I appreciate it. So, and it's crazy because I got a lot of DMs from my Instagram, and they were thanking me for even talking about these kind of situations because a lot of people, a lot of people can relate. And I knew this would happen, I already knew this would happen. So, you guys, I wanted to talk about that day. Wow. So, you guys, it's so crazy, but when I was a little kid and we got evicted from our our second house, um, that time frame was probably the worst time frame I could go through in my life. And what's crazy, you guys, is I didn't even know that I had this. I did not know I had this, guys. And what this is basically a diary. Um, what's crazy is years after, maybe about 2 years after we got evicted out of our second home where we lived, and throughout the period of time when I was getting molested and stuff like that, you guys, maybe a couple years after, we went back to our storage where we had all of our stuff. And it wasn't until my parents were gonna get rid of the storage and let everything that was in the storage go. So we went back to get only important stuff and things that we wanted to get out. And I went with my dad this day. And I remember I saw my stuff that I had throughout, my childhood. And I came across this book. I didn't even know I had it. It went out. It was like, I forgot about it. I didn't know I had it, you guys. And this book, it's so written on. It says my real name, Bernardo. Book that's private. And you guys, this book goes back to November 16th, 2006. You guys, like, I remember when I saw it, I didn't even know what it was until I opened it, and I had to close it really fast because I didn't want my parents to see it. And then I took it with me. And I can't believe I can't believe it, you guys. Like, November 16th, 2006. Like this, like November 16th, 2006. I wrote about my aunt dying. Like, I cannot believe I had this journal, guys, and I'm gonna keep it. And you guys, this is a really happy thing for me to see now that I'm 20, gonna be 25. But I wrote this when I was 9, 10, and 11 years old. Well, I was like 10. And 10 into like 13, 14, and 15, and 16, guys. And I cannot believe it, but I ended up starting to write in it all the time. And so after I found this, I read, and I cannot, now that I'm a lot older, I can reminisce, but also it's so sad because I can see the shift in my personality and my writing. And I can't believe I did this. Like, I can't believe it. I write a lot about my aunt passing away, about my parents. You know, look, like this one, guys. 2006. Wow, like this one. I'll just put the bottom. The pain I feel inside. Monday, December 6th, 2010. 9:54 p.m. I know it was p.m. because I never wrote it in the morning. Like, look, you guys, like, I cannot believe, like, look at just this title. Look at the title, my, like, so this one was Friday, February 4th of 2011. You guys, this was in 2011. And, I'm only gonna share this with you guys just to reach somebody out there. Reach someone out there. Because maybe if someone would have read my diary back then, I don't know, maybe I could have got help sooner. I don't know. But this is what's sad, you guys, is this was February 4th, 2011. And things to do, and I numbered it and I put die. So this is what it says, you guys. If you guys want to pause it and read it, you guys can. I don't want to read it. I just don't want to be ugly and cry, and just, I know what it says. The reason why I want to talk about it is because, like I said, I know there's kids, and it's sad to say this, but I know that there's kids out there that can relate to it, and maybe are feeling lost, maybe are feeling down and hopeless, and just like they're feeling like horrible, you guys. And I was 8 years old when it happened. What I remember, you guys, and you know what's so crazy, you guys, is how as childs our minds block out so much. I went to my aunt's house, and she lived like 3 houses down from my grandmother. And remember, like I told you guys, we had like 22 people living in the same household. We just got evicted from our last home, our second home. And so we were living with my grandma for a long time. And I went to my cousin's house with all of my other cousins, and this man pulled me into the room, the master bedroom of the home, and made me do things. And I'm not gonna go into details, you guys. After everything was done, you guys already know, I obviously was scared. I was 8 years old. I already knew that it was wrong. And I already knew my brothers already just got back from jail. My dad has been in jail many times before. And the personality of my family, you guys, was very dysfunctional, very horrible, very violent. And I knew what would happen, you guys. Not to mention, I was scared of the cops. Like, scared of the cops. I already had PTSD from cops because of what happened when I was little. With all of the gang violence, with all of the SWAT team coming over, you know, and all of that. Like, I was already scared. I was broken already by that point. So after he did what he made me do, had a porn magazine, and he rolled it up, and the cops were already at my house, which is what's crazy. The cops were already at my home, to like 2 to 3 houses up. And the reason why we knew that was because when he rolled up that porn magazine, he put it in my pocket and said, "I'm gonna tell the cops what you did." And he rolled it up and he put it in my pocket. He made me go out to the front door and he said, "Police, they're here." Obviously the cops can't hear him, but I got scared. And said I was doing bad things, and look what he has in his pocket. I'm a kid, I didn't know that they couldn't hear, but when he put me in that position, I didn't know that. I was a kid. And I started to bawl and cry, and I would get really scared. I ran back inside and I cried for a while. Once I saw that there was no more cops at the house, I went home, and it didn't happen for, well, after that I went home and it didn't happen no more. It didn't happen no more for maybe about a year and a half, up to like 2 years, because at this point they had just moved into a new house. And after they moved away, my cousin was able to drive, one of my older cousins, which lived with him and her mom and that family. And we would all go over to her home, and it had stopped for a couple years. And by this time I'm maybe about, what, like 10 years old, 10 years old. And one night when I fell asleep in the living room, all I feel is, I'm a deep sleeper, you guys. But one night I just felt like I was being lifted like this, and I was across the arms. And you know how it takes a couple minutes to really wake up and then realize what's happening, or whatever the case is. On a normal day, you wake up and you're not awoke like that. It takes you a couple minutes. I finally realized that he was holding me like this by the arms and taking me to the room. So that happened, and that was the second time, you guys, that it happened. So by that time, I remember just trying to get off and kind of arching my back so I can be straight instead of curled. And I remember he just squeezed me until I could not. He squeezed me so tight I couldn't breathe. Like literally, like he just like basically crushed my body. And went like this, crushed my body. And I remember he did that because throughout the hallway to the room, I was trying to get off, and I was trying to get off, and he crushed me like this, so I couldn't move or breathe, in a sense, because he squeezed me so damn hard. Then he did what he did. I left. I left. He had a peeping hole. You guys, I didn't. I'm trying not to cry. But you guys, he had a peeping hole in the closet. And in that closet, you could see outwards into the hallway. So literally when he was done, when it was over, he went into the closet and peeped out to make sure nobody was up, and he sent me on my way. I remember that night I stayed awake the whole night because he did this late, like I don't know what time, you guys, but he did it late, like when everyone was sleeping. So I knew it was It had to be between midnight and maybe like 3 or 4 in the morning. But I remember the rest of the morning I stayed up, and I remember I went back to the couch. I put the sheets over my head and I cried. I cried for a while because you guys, it didn't happen for maybe about a year. I'm gonna say 2 years at least after the first time it happened. And so I was shocked. I kind of suppressed what happened. And it wasn't until the second time when I was under the sheets and I was like, I remembered, I was like, it did happen. You know, like my eyes went up, my mind was working. All of a sudden I saw flashbacks because I already knew it happened, you guys, but I didn't remember details. I just knew it happened and it was a blur. But until the second time happened, literally like it played like a movie in my head. I remember it played like a movie and repeated, and I was like, oh my God, I remember now. I remember thinking about it. And I remember, you guys, I was gonna tell my mom. And I remember I came home, but she was on her drugs. And I came home back to my grandma's house and I was gonna tell my mom. I remember I was on the couch, but she was already coming off of her drugs. And when that happens for my mom, she gets crazy and she starts throwing mood swings, tantrums, whatever you want to call it. And I remember like I wanted to tell my mom so bad. And I remember me sitting on the couch and I was literally like contemplating in my head, like, when do I tell her? Because she's mad right now. And next thing you know, I'm getting yelled at, right? I'm getting yelled at for I don't remember what it was exactly, but I remember I got yelled at. And I left to the patio and I cried in the patio. And from then on, I didn't even bring it up. That was that, you guys. I wanted to tell, but I couldn't. And I knew if I told my brothers, I knew if I told my dad, I knew they would go back to jail. And that scared me because I was already exposed to that life too early, that I already comprehended what would happen at 8 and at 10 years old. I already knew, guys. And so I was so sad. What's so sad, you guys, is that there's so many kids out there that are going through the same exact shit. And there's some kids in their home feeling sad, feeling lost, depressed, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And I ended up telling you guys. My next video will be about that, because what's crazy, you guys, is that I know the date that I reported it. I know how I reported it, and I have it written down. I reported it in 2011, you guys. And my next video, I'll talk about that. Go get help. Report it. Report it. That's it. Just report it. And it's hard, you guys, because the sad shit is that people ask me, how come I didn't say it sooner? How come this? How come that? And that shut me down. That shut me down because I couldn't even speak honestly to my family about why. Because it was so dysfunctional and I knew what would happen next. We live in a sad world, and you guys, that's what happened to me. That's my story, and that's how that's my truth and what happened to me. Those were just the two main points in my life that was really horrible. And I know you kids out there, if you guys are watching and this happened to you or is happening to you at this moment, please go out and report it. Please go out, report it. and try your hardest to report it. I'm not gonna say do your best, because it's not. Do anything in your power to report it as best as you can. You know, my goal one day is to close this book, you know, and start a new one. When I found this book, you guys, this is how it looks. It's so old. Like, look, I cannot believe it, guys. Like, it's so old. And it's crazy. I want you guys to see what I went through and how I am doing now, and how I can overcome this, even growing as a father, as a man, as a broken little boy, how I can leave that broken boy behind. And it's challenging. It's so challenging, because every time I feel like I am leaving him behind, something reels me back in and fucks it up for me, really, you know. And it's crazy, man. It's just crazy. I used to really feel so horrible and make myself feel so horrible for feeling sorry for myself, for saying just get over it. I used to tell myself, stop being a bitch. That's literally like I was being a little bitch, because I would feel this way, and in my head I was telling myself, like, stop being a little bitch, stop, you know, it's over now, get over it, type of thing. And you know, it's crazy, because when you do not handle your traumas, your problems, etc., what happens is that it follows you all the way through your adulthood too, if you don't. And I'm noticing that with all of the adults in my life. I noticed that immediately, you guys. Like, I don't want to be like them. I want to do my work so that way my kids don't have to heal from their past like how I have to. And so that's why I'm doing it, because I look at my kids and I'm like, man, if I don't do my job, if I don't do my work for myself, you're gonna have to pick me up later, and I'm gonna leave a trail for them to keep picking up my pieces. And then at the same time, they're gonna have to pick up their own pieces of their life. And I don't want to do that to my kids. I want to show them that daddy did it, daddy's doing it, and that I'm doing the best that I can. And I want them to be proud of me one day. I know there's no perfect parent out there. There's no perfect parent. And I know later on in life, one day my children will say, you didn't do this. But I'm going to be able to have a conversation with them about that. I'm going to be able to own my shit and say, you know what, baby, I'm sorry. You know, because there's no perfect parent. But I think what we all have to do as children, as parents, adults, whatever we are, is we need to own our shit and be able to talk about it. And that's how I'm starting right now. I'm talking about it. I want to own up to my shit. All wrongs. I'm not perfect. I'm wrong sometimes. I might not like it, but I'm wrong. And if you guys have any family members that you think or know that they're going through this, talk to them. Let them feel that you're there for them. Know that they can come to you, because I didn't have anybody I could go to, you know. And I wish I did. I really wish I did. At that point in time in my life, it felt comfortable enough. The environment was, maybe if it was a lot more pleasant, I would have been able to say something. But because of all of the fighting and dysfunction and craziness and all that shit, I couldn't say it. So maybe you can. Maybe you can offer that to one of your family or friends out there that's going through it, and just reach out to them. Ask them, how are they?